This Mercury retrograde has the tendency to possibly be a little bit more wonky and mess with things a little bit more than usual, but can also lead to some intense ingenuity and inspiration. And I'm about to explain to you exactly how. Hi, my name is Crystalline. I'm your modern magic mentor. I run the Modern School of Ancient Wisdom, and astrology is my love language. So I'm really excited to share with you exactly what we're expecting for this Mercury retrograde in Virgo happening between the 23rd of August and the 15th of September. But there's so much more to it. So before we dive in, I'm going to actually explain what Mercury retrograde is astronomically, because astrologically we interpret how the astronomical event affects us from our perspective on Earth. But it really helps to understand Mercury retrograde from the astronomical perspective, the actual science of the physics of what's going on. And I'm going to use these to do it. So what we're going to imagine is this little guy is Mercury, this bigger guy is the sun, and you of our Earth. So this is actually really easy and perfect. So when we think about Mercury retrograde, it's that Mercury just stops and moves backward through the sky, which is not what actually physically happens. It's because we're looking from our perspective that Mercury appears to move backwards through the sky. And I'm going to show you exactly how that works. So when Mercury is moving direct, we are actually seeing Mercury cruising along behind the sun on the outer side of its orbit. But eventually Mercury is going to have to come back around and finish the circle of its orbit. So Mercury is doing this around the sun, as we all do. But when we see it, it's doing this when it's direct, and then it comes back around and it goes backwards. So as you can see from your perspective in sort of a 2D expression, it's just going back and forth. And Mercury has a revolution around the sun of about 3 months. So that's why we experience Mercury retrograde roughly 4 times each year. And that's why we're always feeling like we can blame Mercury for a lot of things that are going on. Mercury is, of the planets, the one that is known to be the most changeable. So it makes sense that changes and disruptions happen when Mercury decides to go rogue and be retrograde. So now that we know what we're looking at with Mercury retrograde, let's actually take a look at the chart and see what we're looking at more thematically, archetypally, and in our own lives for this Mercury retrograde. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share the screen and I'm going to pull up Luna. And here we have the chart of the day and the moment that Mercury goes retrograde. So this is on 8/23, August 23rd, which is tomorrow at about 3:59 p.m. and even like 28 seconds. By 4 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, Mercury will be retrograde. Now, already Mercury is at the location that it's going to retrograde. Mercury is on that 21st degree. So if we look at this chart, you can actually find Mercury right there. So Mercury is the feminine sign with the little horns, and that is the 21st degree that Mercury will stop and then turn around on. So as we saw before, as Mercury goes back and forth, Mercury has already come up to 21 degrees of Virgo. Now Mercury is going to move backwards to the 8th degree of Virgo before moving forwards again. So it's kind of like a windshield wiper situation where, you know, if you have something on your windshield, the first swipe kind of makes it dirtier. The second swipe cleans it off a little bit. And then that final swipe really lays it to the point that you can see again. So that's what we're kind of experiencing with a Mercury retrograde. Retrograde has RE in the front of it in the beginning of the word as a prefix. And sometimes it really helps to think about RE words when we're in retrograde that go along with the theme of the planet. So Venus retrograde, another situation that we're still in until September 4th, gives us renewal and remembering and renegotiations and all of those RE words, reorganization or redistribution in our relationships. So those are the things that we can think about happening to the R words, the RE words, with Venus themes, relationships, art, values, things that we consider valuable. So sometimes that's our possessions, Venus going shopping, right? What is the thing that catches the eye? And Venus, of course, in Leo is saying, it's the me in relationship. Where do I fit in this relationship? How do I feel seen? How can I revisit the roles of this relationship? Now, I'm bringing this up because for the first couple days of this Mercury retrograde, Venus will also be retrograde, as she has been since the end of July 21st. So since then, we've already been reworking our relationships. Now we are going to bring in a reworking and a reorganization. I like the word organization because Mercury is, of course, in Virgo. Virgo is where Mercury is not only domiciled, but exalted. It is the only planet that has one sign where it has both of those dignities. So Mercury is very strong. And even in fact, if we narrow it down even more, this August 23rd is a Wednesday, which is a Mercury day. So this is a planet that is fully in charge of itself, has its resources, has its praise from the energies that it's in right now. It is fully comfortable and supported. And now it's going to go rogue. So it's kind of like thinking that there's really not much telling Mercury what to do right now. And then Mercury is going to decide to color outside the lines a little bit with this. Now we do have, as you can see, Mars pretty close by. Mars is going to keep on going, picking up speed, while Mercury turns around and goes backwards. So Mars actually, if we think about it, is adding impulse to this. So if we feel impulsive inclinations to change or rework things or reorganize around this time, it makes a lot of sense. Like, I just got to do it. I just feel like I do. Another thing that we can take a look at. So this is Mars over here. Over here in a trine. So Mars is in conjunction, more or less. It's a bit wide, but it's still there. We come over to Uranus. Uranus is a very, a lot of evolutionary astrologers will call this like the higher octave of Mercury, because it also does change, revolution, ingenuity, inspiration, genius, evolution. So a lot of things that are big changes on big scale. And Uranus is not quite perfect, but very near that exact trine. So Uranus is at 23 and is actually going to hang out there because in a couple days, Uranus too will be going retrograde on the 28th of August. So both of these planets really are more or less stationary at this point, which is a very big punctuating moment. It's Mercury standing still, Uranus just about standing still. He's not going to get much further than that, being a planet that's far out there. Even though it's a couple days, he doesn't make that much progress through the sky from our perspective. So we see these two planets sort of giving each other the nod and then going off on their own plans, but there's a sort of cahoots happening here. So I see this as we're really looking at Uranus flavoring and punctuating the whole nature of Mercury retrograde, which is why I brought into the interpretation early on in the video that there may be even more communication situations or systemic communication situations. Virgo does systems really well. So Mercury in Virgo was creating really great communication, connection, travel, all of those things that really convey one thing or one state of being to another. Mercury does. If we think about Hermes being the messenger, think about all the ways that that could show up in your life, especially thinking at this point about technology, because it is our primary mode of connection in the world right now. News, information, the way we talk to each other, all of those kinds of things might come into play here. So thinking about that being radicalized a little bit and exacerbated by Uranus wanting to make things even more exciting is something that I would keep in mind. I have already basically bulletproofed my cell phone because it's been threatening to fall and break several times. I've had some butterfingers moments. So I'm not taking chances. I went out, I got a new screen protector, a new phone case, all the things to keep it safe. One of the things that I think is really helpful is just making sure, I know you're going to see this only with a day to sort of prepare. That's okay. You've probably been naturally preparing. Just know that since August 4th, Mercury has already started covering those degrees. August 4th is when Mercury hit the 8th degree of Virgo and then came up to the 21st degree. So that's where Mercury is going to stop and then move back again to 8 before moving forward again. So thinking about what's been happening in your life since August 4th, when Mercury first hit that initial degree that we'll be recovering, what's gone on in your story since then has been Act 1 of the story of Mercury retrograde. It's the establishing the setting, establishing the characters, and leading us up to the retrograde, which is sort of like the call to adventure. This is where the action begins. And so as we're thinking about that, if you look back and say, well, I've been dealing with a lot of stuff surrounding such and such in my life, that might help you really understand what Mercury retrograde is working on with you, what you're reorganizing in your life, especially in the area of your life where Virgo this symbol right here, wherever Virgo is on your chart, that's the area of life, the house, the place where things are happening for you. So you can even look up certain keywords. They're very easy to find. And most of them are applicable when you find them online. If you look up, in this case, it would be the 10th house keywords in astrology. That's a perfect phrase to use. First house keywords in astrology, 7th house keywords in astrology, 4th house keywords in astrology. I highlight those because if Virgo is in one of those places for you, you're more likely to experience this more directly. So if Virgo is on the angles, as you can see here, the angles of the chart, we're more likely to feel things that are at our angles because they happen more directly to or with us as compared to in the periphery. So if we think about like a car's blind spots, these are the periphery or the peripheral that you'd have to really check your mirrors to be able to notice. These are the things that you can see readily. They are happening right in front of you. That's a little bit to think about with Mercury retrograde. To really break it down and summarize, we're looking at a reorganization, a rewrite, re-editing sort of situation with Mercury, the way that we communicate, the way that we travel, the way that we support ourselves. In Virgo, this might happen in areas typically or in general, in areas of food supply, harvest, kind of stuff like that, but also health systems, the service industries. So thinking about if you deal with customer service rep because something goes wrong for you this Mercury retrograde, try to be super patient with them because they're going to be getting a lot this Mercury retrograde and being the people who are the messengers of you to your solution. I'm giving extra kudos to anybody who works in customer service right now, because I think that they are about to be the heroes that we need. So keeping that in mind, that Mercury is covering the degrees of 8 to 21 Virgo, if you have important things in those degrees in any of those 4 angles I talked about. So it would be in Virgo, in Gemini, in Pisces, and in Sagittarius. If anything is in the 8 to 21 degrees of that, it may be also helping to activate this and make it noticeable for you. Also thinking about the fact that we've kind of gotten hints about this when Virgo first came into Virgo on the 28th of July. And then really the story started setting itself on August 4th when Mercury hit that 8th degree for the first time. Mercury will station retrograde, as we can see, on the 23rd here. We will reach the halfway point of Mercury retrograde on September 6th, which is the Cazimi, which gives us a lot of clarity. The midway point, the midpoint of I understand everything I've been through and I understand what I need to do to actually find success and reach the end of this story. And then, of course, Mercury will go direct on the 15th of September. And that post-shadow phase where Mercury, because it stations direct at 8, has to recover those degrees to 21 one more time, that will be accomplished by the 30th of September. And then, of course, early October, Mercury will go right into Libra. And we know for sure that that story will be concluded by then. So whatever it is, you have a timeline, you have expectations, you have the ability to say, this is how long this is likely to last, so I can make it. I can do it. I can be patient. I can be creative. I can be exercising my genius and my ingenuity, whatever it is that is going to help you during this situation. It's not all chaos and the world crumbling. This could lead to massive breakthroughs that feel really good. If you are going into something where you're like, hey, I want to actually give this flexibility. I want it to be something that grows and changes a lot. It's a great time to do it. Mercury retrograde kind of gives the promise that this will be revisited. Whatever begins in Mercury retrograde, I've heard of people who take new jobs during Mercury retrograde. And then when Mercury retrogrades again, they revisit their contract, often giving themselves a raise or a new situation that is better for them every time because they are changing. So their circumstances get to adjust with them. So keeping in mind, do you want something to be fixed and enduring, or do you want something to be creative and mutable and something that can change? Those are the things we keep in mind with the nature of what we've got to work with. So it's just like using ingredients in baking or in cooking. Do you want something spicy? Use the spice. Do you want something mild? Don't add as much spice. It's that kind of thing. And we are in what would be considered maybe a spicier time. So those are things to keep in mind. That's your general idea for Mercury retrograde. If you are using Luna, it's super easy to see this because we can see direction changes. So we saw Mercury retrograde happened August 23rd, and you actually click that, brings you right to the chart, which is super cool. Double click here. And we get to say to the next one, September 5th, the sign transit. So we know this is how I figured stuff out. Mercury came into Leo, Mercury came into Virgo on the 28th, like we said. And then we'll go into Libra on the 4th and moves direct on the 15th. And there's a lot more that you can do. I dove into other features to really investigate this and make it easy. But if you are someone who's using Luna, or if you're someone who's ready to try using Luna, this is there for you. And if you want, I have a discount code. If you're interested in Luna, I will put that in the description of this video so you can check it out for yourself as well. And it is an affiliate code. So if you do feel like using it, I will get notified that you're using Luna and I will be excited for you. So that is Mercury retrograde this time around. That is Mercury retrograde in Virgo. Expect the unexpected, be ready to roll with new situations, and you can choose excitement and say things are about to change and I'm excited to see how they go. That's always something that really helps me. I'd rather be excited twice than worried twice. So if I have to be excited and then it doesn't work out, I'm only worried once. But that's my own technique. And I hope that you find ways that work for you. And I hope that this is actually a really productive and wonderful Mercury retrograde for you. Knowing that we have Saturn reaching the halfway point of his retrograde on the 23rd, I believe. Hang on a second, 27th. So Mercury retrograde on the 23rd. Saturn opposition is actually a really middle point for the Saturn retrograde on the 27th, and then Uranus also going retrograde on the 28th. So there's a lot of slowing down as we come into fall. There's a lot of being able to really indulge in the fall vibes. Maybe you're feeling them already as the sun is also making their way into Virgo. So have a wonderful time with this. Use it to the best of your ability. And if you need extra help, you can always work with me through Patreon or singular consultations and education. I am totally here for you. I'd love to geek out over your chart and help you understand and learn all the things that you want to know. So have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful retrograde. Bye.